Thanks so much for joining us this weekend. I have a very special guest with us. This is Kristi Stuart, the Executive Director of Love Inc. Now, you may think, what is Love Inc.? Love Inc. is love in the name of Christ and does some wonderful work here in Brevard. And we felt led by God to partner with Love Inc. last year. And we're in the second year of our partnership with them. And just going to let Kristy tell a little bit about what Love Inc. does. So, Kristy, in a nutshell, kind of what is Love Inc.? What do you do? What's your history? Those type of things.
Okay. So Love Inc. is our mission is to mobilize local churches to change lives and communities in the name of Christ. So basically, Love Inc. provides the structure for Christians to come together with their gifts, talents, and resources to fill that mandate that God gives each one of us to help people in need. Now, the people that we help, it's a hand up, not a handout. So they have to be part of the process. It's a transformational process. And, we really walk with people spiritually, physically, emotionally, and relationally so that they can be set free to be all that God has for them. And we want to walk with people through their need, not around it, knowing that God has allowed this in their life to mold them more into who He wants them to be. And I don't know about you, but in my own life, when God's trying to teach me something, if I don't get it, He's going to bring it back around. So we want to walk with Him through that need.
Excellent. So how did Love Inc. kind of get started here in Brevard?
So Love Inc. is 18 years old right now. We are an international organization. We have 130 plus in the United States and 7 in Nairobi, Kenya. And we have 7 here in Florida. As I mentioned, we started 18 years ago, and we started with Bob Llewellyn, who had this vision and realized that it lined up with what Love Inc. National was doing. So
I didn't know that Bob started all of this.
Yes, in 2002. Wow. Yep.
Brevard's own Bob Llewellyn.
Yes,
excellent.
Yes.
Wow.
And now both of his children run our thrift store. They're the manager and the assistant manager. So it's a really cool picture of how God has brought it back around, and it's just part of the family. It's awesome.
So what role do churches play in Love Inc.? How do we fit in?
Yes. So Love Inc. is actually owned by the church partners. We are not a parachurch organization. We really see ourselves as an extension of your staff. So Love Inc. does not exist without the church. So we are constantly asking ourselves when we're doing things is, are we mobilizing the church? So we really are, we're non-existent without the Christians in churches. So
I know one of the things that we really liked about being a part of Love Inc., we got started with Love Inc. helping with projects back when your predecessor was there, Dan Walker.
Yes.
And we would go help Love Inc. clients. We would clean out backyards, different things like that. But one of the things that impressed me was your emphasis on the gospel and sharing Christ with people. Would you kind of talk a little bit about how that mobilizes or how that molds what you do?
Yes. So, when I think of Jesus and what was one of the first things He did is He served. And so people don't know that you really care about them until you really come alongside them and build a relationship. And really help them where they are. And that really lays the platform to be able to share, like, I am doing this because I love you, but there is somebody greater. And so if we're not pointing people to Christ, then all this is for nothing, right? And it goes hand in hand. You have the action and the service of it, but we also have to open our mouth, right, and share that gospel. So they really go hand in hand, and you can't do that unless you're in relationship. And that is really something that's really different about Love Inc. And we tell our clients when they first come to us that we're not an emergency resource. We want to build a relationship with you, and we want to help you get to the root of your need. And we're going to do that through relationships. So like in our call center, each one of those volunteers have maybe 5 clients that they're calling every single week. And it's through that relationship that people feel safe and they can really, really share and really, really get deep to see, okay, what are these root issues? And it doesn't mean that those mentors are necessarily counselors. We have counselors that we can send our clients to if there is that greater need. But it's love, right? It's that love. And every time we're on a call with someone, we end by saying, how can I pray for you? And every point in the conversation, we're, pointing them to Christ as the Holy Spirit leads, right? Because he knows that person far greater than we do. So yeah, it really is all in the name of Christ, because only Christ transforms, right?
Right. Christ said actually that the way that we love each other, not how much we know, not how much we give, not how much we serve, but how we love each other is what tells people who we follow. And one of the things that I love so much about what Love Inc. does is what you said, is that walking along with people, trying to identify people, because we're all about making disciples and not just getting someone to pray a prayer and run them through the baptismal pool, but our whole mission is making disciples here and everywhere for the glory of God. But we really factor on that second part of the Great Commission that says, and teaching them to obey all the things that I've commanded you.
Amen.
And a lot of that is walking through life's problems and helping people know how to apply the teaching of Scripture as they walk along. They'll accept Christ, and then they may hit something later like, oh my goodness, I had no idea this was going on in my life. And you guys are there able to help them with that. I love that vision that you have there. Maybe you could share with us maybe just some stories of how you've helped some people in this past year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we talk a lot about love. And so with love, there is also those hard conversations that we have. And so I'm thinking about one of our clients who, when she came to us, she said, I need a car. Mm-hmm. And so we do have an auto program. And so we told her right away that is not going to happen for some time, because we want to understand and help you get sustainable. And so in that journey, she kept focusing on, I need a car. And so one day I said, I would like to come in and chat with you. And so she came in, because we're not a walk-up facility. We obviously have our thrift store where clients come in and volunteer. But she came in and sat down, and I said to her, the car is off the table. What we're really looking for is for you to work on these anger issues that you're having, because she had really escalated talking about this car. And she heard me, and it was because we spoke in love and we were already in relationship. And she came back a couple weeks later. She did end up going to counseling. She came back and she said that conversation was completely pivotal in changing her life, because she left that conversation and she said she had grown up in a family that was constantly yelling and constantly focused on material things. And she said she always did not want to become like her family. And after that conversation, she realized that is exactly who she had become. And she said, I don't want to live this way. And so she did the hard work through counseling and made those changes. She, was completely set free and transformed. So it's in love and in relationship where we can have those conversations.
Cool.
Yeah.
I tell you, one of the things that last year was an incredibly tough year.
Yes.
It just was.
Yes.
I mean, COVID hit everybody like a boulder coming down a hill.
Yes.
And I'm sure it showed up in our ministry and where we are. But how were you able to help people specifically last year in COVID? Did that show new avenues for you? How did that work out?
Wow. So we were thrilled, because inside the church and outside the church, the community came to Love Inc. and said, we need your help to a level we've never experienced. So we got over $40,000, and that was through people from the church. It was through grants. It was through the community agencies that saw Love Inc. as an avenue to help people in need. So how cool is that? So some of the different things we did is right away, Brevard Public Schools said, we have this gap and we need to feed the kids. So we partnered with Children's Hunger Project, and for a couple of weeks we mobilized the church and we fed those kids. And then the Haven if you don't know what the Haven is, it's a home where children can be safe who have been taken out of their families, and their meals are directly related to the school system. So again, they had a gap. So we reached out to the church and we fed the kids at the Haven for a couple weeks. And then we had a bivocational pastor call us up, and he was an Uber driver. And they weren't working, obviously. Nobody was going anywhere. And he said he heard the Lord say, give them something to do. So he also had a friend that was a Christian restaurant owner, the Bearded Chef. And so they called us up and said, we want to partner with Love Inc. and will you coordinate this? And so what we did is we paid costs for the food at the restaurant, and we put gas in the Uber drivers' tanks. And for 12 weeks, we helped elderly and shut-in people, over 400 people, who couldn't afford to get those groceries delivered to them. So we were able to help them get food. And then we partnered with Hunger Fight, which is an organization, and we brought the church together and we packed 14,000 meals, and we were able to help hungry people in Cocoa and also the migrant workers.
Wow.
Because they were out of work and needed food. And then we paid some small bills, and we have gotten a large sum of money come into Brevard County for rent assistance. And actually, just last week, they approved $18 million more. Wow. And so we know the agencies that are doing that. So we're pointing people to those agencies. And then right now, we are giving Publix gift cards to COVID positive families so that they can have prepared meals delivered to them. They don't have to think about that as they're recovering. And ironically, it's been a lot of pastors and a lot of ministry leaders and mostly people from the church that have benefited from this gift card program, which is so cool, right?
Yeah.
It's the church helping the church, right? Because we're in need as well. And so we're going to continue with that program as long as we have the funds, and we're continuing to write grants to have funds specifically for COVID. So just really, really cool. To see we had never done anything on that level before, and the community recognized the church through Love Inc. to call on to help in such a greater way. Really cool.
Now, what I love about that is it's not just about making an organization and somebody else goes and does this. You guys are helping facilitate and coordinate and put people together so that people serve. Here at Bay West, we call it the Bay Way. This is what we expect from our members. Be here, attend, among friends, that you plant and be part of life groups and develop relationships and pour yourself into people as they pour yourself into you. But we also say your part, because we believe how you serve others is just as important as your quiet time with the Lord. Your outpouring needs to equal the inpouring that God is giving into you, and you need to pull it out. And service is a huge part that people kind of can get, this last year especially, can kind of get turned inward because we're in survival mode.
Yes.
But you guys have really helped in bringing people out of that shell and turning people to give out of even sometimes their own poverty.
Yes.
And I think that's outstanding.
Yes.
I know that it's, COVID impacted so many ministries in, just from that. I mean, and those are some of the positive ways, but, how else has COVID impacted you guys this last year?
Yes, great question. So really the word that the Lord gave us after COVID hit was less is more. And so I know for myself, and I've talked to lots of other pastors, they feel the same way. So it was really a time for us to adjust our priorities and, yes, put our family first, but also to go deeper and sit at the Lord's feet, because we didn't have that time before. I feel like before COVID, we were anxious and we were overworked and we were troubled. And so it just gave us that time. It's what we call like a reset. So the Lord really gave us that reset. And so although we closed down for 7 weeks, we were still, this is so cool, all of our call center volunteers said we want to still connect with our clients. So they did that star 67 and they worked from home, and they continued to reach out to the clients weekly and pray with them and make sure that they were doing well. We had the opportunity to do a lot of things in the thrift store. We painted the thrift store, our offices, did lots of reorganizing. So it was a time for us to really, really reset. And so also really spending that time at the Lord's feet is what we're focusing on. So we want to be behind the Lord, working through him to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. And the word he gave us this year is still less is more. So even this year we are building strong internally, but we are focusing on only doing what we think the Lord is calling us to do. And so we're asking ourselves 4 different questions with everything that we're doing. Is God still calling us to do this? If that's a yes, do we have capacity now? If that is a yes, is there anything about what we're doing and our processes and our procedures that we need to look and change? And then the 4th question is, are we mobilizing the church?
Gotcha.
Are we bringing those Christians together to do what we feel like God's calling us to do? So it's really a less is more look at things right now for us. That reset.
And so honestly, I mean, we've all felt like, I know at times, I know I have, I've looked around and said, oh, how many Christians are there in the world? Could we not be doing more? And I think that's been the thing. It's not been the heart behind people not to help. It's been the coordination between, because we get into our silos of my church and this church and that church, and we got to put our logo on it, and we got all this stuff, and we need to, when the truth is, we just need to know where the help is, and let's go help what's working. Let's go step in and be a part. And I think that's been a great blessing for us working with you guys, is being able to step in and just let us help supply some let us help supply some manpower. Let us help supply a little bit here and there. And obviously it's been a great blessing. And it's been something that God's led us to do here in Brevard. We took a big step, last year and grew our own financial giving to outward ministry by over 500%.
Yes. Wow. That's amazing.
And we took on 4 organizations, and you guys were one of them. And, we want to continue it, and we love what's happening there.
Yes.
With that especially. Are there any new things, any new directions you guys are looking toward as you're going, okay, what is God still calling us to do this? What does he call us to do next?
Yeah.
And all that.
That's a great question. So we, the last couple of years, have been working hard to build strong internally, knowing that God is going to expand our territory. Mm-hmm. So we really are right now in the southern part of Brevard. We prayed for a couple of years for Loving to open up in Titusville. We are the longest county in Florida, 80 miles long, and we've got 650,000 people. So after praying for 2 years, it was like, no, God's giving us a different vision. So what we're doing is we are hiring or bringing on directors who will run the inner workings of Love Inc. so that I can be out in the community, which is where I feel like God's calling me to be, to really bring together the Big C Church on a whole nother level, working together with evangelism and prayer and the marketplace. There are Christian businesses who can finance the things that God's calling us to do in the community, bringing the churches together. We have over 500 churches in Brevard County, and really, we're doing that on a micro level right now in the South, but we want to eventually open up call centers in Cocoa and in Titusville so that we can help more individuals, but doing it at a micro community-wide level in unity and bringing Christians together. So that's really our future vision.
And that's what's great, I think, for a church our size. We can't have a financial expert that can walk someone through a hard situation financially. We can pray and we can support them, but you guys can have people that, I know this person over here, I have this person over here, and we have this system set up. We can actually funnel people to that specific situation. Or maybe there's that, like the Haven. When we recognize a situation, there's a place to go that says, oh, we know this. And that's one of the hardest things is there's plenty of people to help. Mm-hmm. It's getting people to the right people. And that's what I love about Love Inc. And I'm glad that God has asked us to come along with you guys, and we're glad to be on this journey with you. But I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing with us. And you'll be hearing more from Kristy and from Love Inc. in the upcoming years with us as we partner with them, and we just want to see great things happen with Love Inc.